Hi, we're here from the Confraternity of Penitents. We'd like to talk to you a little bit about our rule of life. And today we're going to talk about the clothing part of our rule. Now, this is perhaps the most distinctive part of the Confraternity of Penitents rule, or any third order rule in this modern age, is the clothing part. And our rule for the Confraternity of Penitents is based on our call, which was to live the original rule of 1221 as close as possible to its original intent. The rule of 1221 was given by Cardinal Ugolino di Conti di Segni, who later became Pope Gregory IX, to the penitents who were following St. Francis and St. Dominic in the 1200s, the early 1200s. And he wrote this rule by how the penitents were living. Now, who were these penitents? The penitents were two classes. They were people who were put into the order of penance by the church because they had done some sort of serious sin, perhaps usury or murder or adultery or some type of severe scandal, whatever. And they were put into this order of penance to make restitution for the sin, this very serious sin that they had committed. But as Francis and his brothers and St. Dominic and his brothers were going around preaching, and they were converting lay people who hadn't committed they committed sins, but not these very serious sins. And there was a desire, even before St. Francis, to embrace penance, to get your life straightened out with the Lord. And I think the reason this was happening at the time, even before St. Francis, was because there were many people in the world who were striving, like an upward mobility kind of a thing. They were striving to get a better worldly station in life. And many of these penitents had been involved in that. And they realized at some point that this is kind of an empty thing here, that I'm trying to get more money, better houses, better clothing, have great parties. Like, what is the purpose of all of this? And there was it's kind of a general movement for some of these people to say, I got to get out of that. So how do I get out of that? So they started to live a penitential rule of life that had to deal with what they ate, with what they wore, with what they possessed, with how much they prayed, with works of charity that they would do, this like a kind of a whole ball of wax sort of thing that would transform their lives if they embraced a certain lifestyle and went away from the lifestyle of self-indulgence that they were involved in. So when Cardinal Ugolino wrote this rule, he gave it to St. Francis to see if Francis would approve it for the lay people that wanted to follow Francis and for the lay people that wanted to follow Dominic, because Dominic also saw this rule and approved it, to help the lay people to live a rule of life in their own homes where they could kind of get out of the world and surrender to the Lord in these various areas that were causing them to be worldly and self-indulgent and more self-centered. So in the original rule, the rule of 1221, the very first part of this rule had to do with the clothing. And in our Confraternity of Penitents, we do that at the end of our formation years. At the end of 4 years of formation, we deal with the clothing in the last year of formation. But the penitents, this is the first part of their rule. And I think that it was first because it was the part of the rule that dealt the most with how they appeared in the world. You could tell the station of somebody at that point in time by the clothing that they wore. The lepers and the really lowest classes, the beggars, they dressed like beggars. They were in rags, they were dirty, you could just tell by looking, that guy has nothing. But the nobles, they were dressed in brocades, beautiful clothing, everything was clean, nice and neat, dyed colors, very, very different than these very, very poor people that got their cast-off clothes. The nobles would give the cast-off clothes to the poor people, but by the time they got them, they were already stained, probably faded, maybe had some holes and so forth. So you could tell by looking at somebody what class they're in. Today it's much more difficult to tell people by what class they're in, because even the wealthy people will wear jeans. They just maybe the jeans cost $1,000 rather than getting them at Walmart for 15. But unless you really look at them close, you can't really tell. So the first part of this rule was about the clothing. So it was against vanity is what I'm thinking. This first part of the rule was that some people couldn't feel vain about what they were wearing, because the original rule says that the people had to dress in humble, the word humble is used, humble undyed cloth. So now all those dyes that the wealthy people had were not to be used by the penitents. Humble undyed cloth, and then they gave a certain price, which was, it was a reasonable price. You'd get something nice for that price, but you wouldn't get something really expensive. You weren't going to get your brocades and your gold and your pearl sequins, and you weren't going to get that for that price. But you could get something that was decent looking, and that was what they were supposed to wear. And then the second provision of that rule said they were to wear their outer garments and furred coats without open throat. Now see, now we're talking about modesty in the original rule. Without open throat, so that it was supposed to be closed. They were supposed to have them sewed shut or uncut, but certainly laced up, not as secular people wear them, and they should wear their sleeves closed. Now at the time of this rule, if you showed your wrist, that was risque. You're supposed to have your whole arm covered down to your hand. So that's why they wanted the sleeves closed. If you had a long sleeve and you put your arm up, you'd see your arm here, and that was considered immodest. The sisters should wear an outer garment and tunic made of cloth of the same price and humble quality, and they are to have a black undergarment or petticoat, an ample linen gown without gathers. Now, why would that's again a modesty situation. If you have gathers, you're pulling the garment together around your waist and hips. Without gathers meant it was like a straight tunic kind of a thing. So you couldn't see somebody's shape so much with this type of a garb that the penitents were wearing, that the women penitents were wearing. And again, the price was, they had the price in here. It wasn't too expensive. It wasn't expensive. It was reasonable, but not cheap. They weren't supposed to look like the paupers. The penitents were not supposed to look like the really people that really didn't have anything, that were destitute, but they were supposed to be humble. The outer garments were supposed to be of lamb's wool only. Now, why is that? Because lamb's wool was, that was the common fabric. You could get wool all over the place. Now, if you're going to have fur, the nobles did hunt for furs, fox furs, otter furs, things like that. That was a higher class of clothing. So the outer clothing was supposed to be only lamb's wool, and sold in a simple fashion without any silken thread, it says here, and no other kind. And the belts were supposed to be sewed in simple fashion, and purses without silken thread, no silk, because silk was imported, that was expensive. So you could have thread, but that would be thread made from flax or something that grew in the area there. But nothing fancy, nothing that would call attention to itself. And then that covers the clothing section of the rule at that time. Now our confraternity has taken that section, and remember, our charism is to live this rule as close as possible to its original intent. And so what was the original intent? Well, it was to dress modestly, and to dress humbly, and to dress in undyed cloth that wouldn't call attention to yourself. So now we think, okay, undyed cloth. Now today we think undyed cloth as like white, but actually undyed cloth is not white. White is actually a dye. It's like a bleaching of a cloth. The undyed cloth at the time of the penitents would have been like a tan, of ivory, white, a gray, a black, depending upon if it was made from flax or wool or some other type of natural fabric. It would have been earth tone colors. Earth tone colors is what it would have been. And the confraternity, I'm in the confraternity, I'm a life pledge member of the confraternity, and I'm not wearing only neutral colors, because I'm wearing blue here, you can see. We put blue in our constitutions to kind of throw people off the other people who are not in our confraternity from thinking that we're living a rule of life, because now we have a color. This color blue was chosen because we take a vow of consecration to the Blessed Mother, and so this blue is associated with the Blessed Mother. So this reminds us that we're consecrated to Mary in the confraternity. So our colors in the confraternity are black, white, gray, camel, tan, blue for the Blessed Mother, and all those other earth shades that you would find, in nature, natural things. And no patterns, because when the original fabrics were made, there weren't patterns to them unless people sewed stuff together, whatever. So now there's a little, I brought some clothing here that we're going to look at, and we'll evaluate this as to whether or not this fits our rule. So let's look at this one first. Can you see this one? Okay, this one is in the colors of the rule. This is white and blue. It's colors of the rule, but I don't know if you can see it. You can see through this. So first of all, it's not modest. And secondly, it has a pattern. So this would not fit our rule, even though the colors, and the colors are mixed, but this does not fit the rule. It's neither modest nor is it plain. This is one, if you can see it here. Now what about this one? This one is kind of iffy because you see there is a little bit of a pattern to it if it's picking it up on the camera. And also you can see through this, if you can see it, if I put this under it, you'll be able to see it better. You can see through these little holes. So depending upon how you wore this could be immodest, but it also has a pattern to it. So this is one of those ones that the color is white, the color is okay, but we have a little saying in the confraternity, when in doubt, throw it out. So if you're not sure what to do about something, just don't use it, give it to the thrift store. So we're going to give this one to the thrift store. Now this one is the color of our rule. We have blue, right? Why isn't this appropriate for a penitent? Well, this is not very modest, okay? Now somebody had said you could wear a shirt under it. Well, that's true, you could. But then if it's a hot day, like it happens to be today, you may be tempted not to do that. So the best thing to do with this, and especially this is off the shoulder here too, which again is not particularly modest. This one should be discarded. This is not meeting confraternity style. Okay, here's one. What about this one? Well, let's just consider the color. Let me turn around first. Now, this is a color that's kind of an in-between color. For some people, this is green. For some people, this is like a bluish, almost like a bluish green. Depends on how colorblind you are or whatever. But again, when in doubt, toss it out. But now the front of it has words on it. And the words itself, even if this was blue, would discount this as being a confraternity garment because we're supposed to have plain garments, not patterns. So that one goes to the thrift store. Now this is another one. Now this one is black and white. Well, this one, we might think of this one as representative of T-shirts that might have religious inspirations on them, or pictures of Jesus or something. But again, this doesn't meet the rule because it's got writing on it. So now if you want to spread the message of Christ with something like this, you can get some little business cards made up that say be kind, and you can pass them out. You can leave them in restaurants. You can send them in with your checks or whatever, rather than wearing it on you. Why would you not wear this on yourself? Because people will read this. This calls attention to you. If you're wearing this, it calls attention to you, which is against the tone of this first part of our rule, which is to have people not call attention to us. So that's why, because of the writing on this, that's the problem. So we're going to give that one away. Okay. Now, I have one over here. This one is okay. This one is just a solid blue. That's not buttoned up because it has to be buttoned up, but it buttons up. It buttons up all the way up to the top here. It doesn't. Now, this would be one that if you wear this, you make sure it's buttoned up. You don't have all those buttons opened up. because then it would be immodest. But you could wear this if you have it buttoned up. But that's okay. It doesn't matter that the buttons are white and the top is blue. That's okay. That doesn't make any difference. But that would be okay. And then this one here is obviously okay because it's just a black t-shirt, nothing on it. Something like that is just plain black. Now, you might have somebody saying with one of these, oh, that's like this white sweater here. Well, that's kind of a pretty top that you have. I like that. I don't think somebody'd say that about this. Gee, that's a nice black t-shirt you have. That's the point. So to not be vain, to not call attention to ourselves, we want to get something that's humble that people are not going to particularly pay attention to. So I don't think anybody's going to covet this. All right. Now we have another shirt here. Now you see this is blue and white, but again, it's got the pattern, so this is not going to fit the confraternity. It's modest and all that, it's okay, but the pattern is the issue. So we could give that to the thrift store. All right, now this is representative of a tweed or this type of a weave. Now the colors it's white and it's brown, but there is a pattern to this type of a garment. And so this would not fit our rule because of the pattern of the brown and the white. Also the belt, this belt is a little bit, it's all right. It's the color of the rule. I guess you could wear it, but if it's used, this belt on this outfit is not going to be used to hold your shirt up. It's going to be used to gather it around your waist. So this you might discard that as well, because that's what this is for on this one. So it could be comparable to gathers in a sense. So we'll put that one over here for the thrift store. Okay, this one here. Now this is one that again has a pattern to it. You can see the black and white makes sort of a pattern, but it's also got like a two-color thing. It's got the black here and then this. Now, if this was all gray, or if this part of it was all white, this would not fit the rule because it's got this black line here down the sleeves. And he has a little bit of a pattern to it, so that one's not going to work. We're going to put that one away for the thrift store. All right. Now we're down here to socks. Okay. Socks, if you can't see them, you can wear them, but you're going to see these. These are socks that you would wear, and if your pants legs come up, you'll see them. So the socks should be a solid color. They could be any one of these colors on here. They could be, because they're black, white, dark blue, light blue, sky blue. They could be that if it's a solid color, but because it's got a pattern, then we have to put this over here for the thrift store. Now here's a pair of socks, but these are different. Because these, if you can see these are slipper socks. These are socks you would wear to bed or like around your house or something. So while our constitutions say that these should be in the rule colors if you can get them, they don't have to be because nobody's going to see this. I mean, this is something you would wear in your house. Now, if you're going to wear this outside when you go to the store, then it's not going to work. But if you're just going to have it in your house, it's okay. Anything that is not visible to the general public, it doesn't matter what it looks like. But if it's visible to the general public, where somebody's going to say, oh, that's pretty, or look at that, or something, that's what we want in here to combat vanity. That's what you're going to give to the thrift store if it doesn't meet the rule colors. And this, again, falls into the same category. This is pajama bottoms. Now, if these are pajama bottoms you wear to bed, then you can use them. If these are pajama bottoms you're going to wear out, well, I don't know why people wear pajama bottoms out, but if you wear it out to go to the grocery store, this would not be usable. All right? Now we have men's ties. Ties in our Constitution say they can be of any color. It's difficult to get men's ties in a solid color. It's very difficult. You can get them, but it's hard. But they said they could be of any color, and as long as they have a small pattern and they're not flashy. Like this would be an example of a tie that isn't flashy. It's very conservative looking tie. This would be an example of a tie that's more flashy. So this one would be okay, this one would not, because this one is really kind of loud. So this one would go to the thrift store. This one you could put in your wardrobe. And I'll give you two others here. Now here's a striped tie. This is pretty conservative looking. This would probably fit the rule. It's not even in the colors of the rule, because it's got red in it. But it isn't flashy, as opposed to this one, which is. So this one, we would say, no, we wouldn't use this one. This one, if a man needs a nice tie, this would probably be okay with the rule. If he could find something that's even less, like not even red, maybe white and black, I mean, whatever, that would be okay. But this one would be all right. This one, no. Okay, so now I'll show you a pair of pants here. These pants are obviously okay. They're just brown. Nothing to them. Okay, I got a tie in it, that's all right. You won't see that, my shirt is going to go over that. So that'll be okay. And we have an apron here. Now aprons are difficult to get for women, but you can get these on the internet. You can find them that are solid colors. This is one. So if you do use aprons, they are visible. I would say you try to get one that's solid colors, but you can get them on the internet, like I said, if you find them, because they do make solid colored aprons like this for restaurant use and so on. So you can get them. They're not that difficult to get. So that one's okay, that meets the rule. All right, so last thing we are going to go over are shoes and bags. So let's go over the shoes first. Now the shoes, these are men's shoes. These are okay. If you want to take these little things off here, you could take those off. If you're concerned about it being an adornment, you could take those off as long as it doesn't break the shoe, but I don't think it will. I think it's just kind of on there. So you can take those off. Now these are okay. These are, they do have this little gray here, but that's just the way the shoe is made. I don't think we have to be that picky about this. Because it's difficult sometimes to get shoes like this or sneakers or something that are like all solid the same color. So this would be okay. It's not really flashy. I don't think somebody's going to be looking at somebody's shoes and say, oh, wow, look at those shoes. This wouldn't call attention to itself. This one should be okay. And these also, even though they are gray and blue, you can see that these are pretty much the color of the rule. There is a little bit of variation in, you can see a little bit here and here. But again, these are not, it's not something that I think people would call attention to itself. Now, if these were purple or pink or something, that would be another story. But they're gray, they would fit the rule. They would be okay. And so now we have the bags here. Now, purses and bags. We have two little purses here. Both of these are black and white, as you can see. This one has white stitching. This one has a white pattern. This one definitely would not be usable. We put that one to the thrift shop. This one, I don't think from my opinion, I mean, some of these you have to make your own decision, but this little bit of white stitching on here, I don't think that's nothing that anybody's going to really pay attention to. Now, maybe if this stitching was red or pink or like it was some kind of bright color, you might not use this purse. But I think the way this is okay. Because it's just stitched there and that's just the way it is. So I think that one's all right. Again, some of these things you have to make decisions about. But in my opinion, that one would be all right. And now the carry bags. That's the last one I wanted to go over. Now, all of these carry bags, it says in our constitutions, the carry bags should be solid colors if possible. It's really hard to get bags that are solid colors. Like this does not meet our rule, and this is just a grocery bag. What are you going to do? This one doesn't meet our rule because it's got writing on it. I mean, if you're looking for a solid bag, nor does this one. This is a cold bag. Nor does this one. Nor does this one, because this one has the pattern to it of the white. This is much more visible than that little purse there, you see, the white and the blue. Nor does this one, even though it's got needs washing, but anyway, it's got writing on both sides. Now, the thing is, These are all bags that I use. I know they're not solid colors, but it's very hard to get solid colors. I do have a solid color bag that I bought, but this I bought this from the internet. Now this one definitely meets the rule because it is solid color, you know, and it's not, that's all that it is. So this would meet the rule, but I would say because it's really hard to get these, I mean, you have to really look for this type of a bag. If you're purchasing bags, I would say try to get something that is subdued, you know, like not real flashy, like something with big pink flowers on it or something like that. Try to get something that's more subdued. But if you don't have it, that's okay. I mean, you're just using it to carry stuff in. I wouldn't agonize over it and get scrupulous about it. So that would be my thoughts about these clothing aspect of the rule and how we appear in public. So the purpose of the rule, again, is to not call attention to ourselves. So if you don't want to call attention to yourself, then you dress like we do and people don't notice you in a crowd. I'll end with a little story. I went to Mass one day, and I went up and got communion from a certain priest, and then I wanted to see the priest after Mass. So after Mass, I waited in the back to see the priest, and I said, "Oh, Father," and I asked him my question. He said, "Oh, were you at Mass today?" I said, "Yes, you gave me communion." So he didn't, now I don't know if maybe he was just looking at hands, I don't know. But I wasn't wearing anything that called his attention to me, because he didn't even know I was there. So I thought, okay, that shows that this rule works. So I leave you with that. I ask to pray about your clothing and understand why we have this part of the rule. It does help against vanity, and it keeps us humble to wear these type of things. Thank you very much. Thank you, Eric.